In the last few months, the number of hate crimes against the Asian community has spiked due to hateful rhetoric and misconceptions about the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's guest endured blatant racism and recorded the incident to show people the kind of hate Asian Americans are dealing with on a regular basis. Here's a snippet.
What's wrong? Can you say that again?
No, I ask and you only for your age is beautiful.
Why are you saying ni hao?
Ni hao is in Chinese.
I'm not Chinese.
I
You don't assume.
1 minute. I have translation for you. Chinese?
No.
No, 1 minute. I translation for you. Ni hao, have a nice day.
Why?
For you, beautiful.
Why do you bow at me?
I don't know. Different people see similar and you, Asiatic.
We don't need that.
I don't know. Maybe Chinese, Philippine. I don't know.
So if you don't know, let's not assume.
My family
Let's
is
not.
nice.
Today's guest is Vivian Hu. Hello, love.
Hello, happy to be here.
And if you guys don't know, this is Blair.
Yeah, and Sadé obviously is here with
Yes.
Open VS, and we are happy to have you, Vivian, especially in light of what's been happening right now. You know, we've got a lot of racial injustices across the board. We've had more flare-ups again within the Black community, but we've, recently been talking a lot about what's been going on with the Asian American community. And Blair just played a clip. Can you just take us back to what happened at that time and what you were feeling, and also let us know, is this something that you felt has been going on repeatedly? Because with BLM and Black people, it seems everybody thinks this is suddenly happening now, but for us, we're like, this was every day. So if you can just take us back to that moment and what your experience has been up to that point.
Yeah, definitely. So I was just walking with my friend to go to the grocery store, and this man stopped me, like got in my way while I was trying to walk forward, and he was like he bowed at me, and then so I stopped, I looked at him, and then he was like ni hao, and then I was like no. So and like the reason I knew, or like kind of brought out my camera and recorded it, is because I've thought about, okay, the next time this happens, because it's bound to happen, this is what I'm going to do, and like prepare myself. And so that's why I decided to record it, and I kind of knew what to say. And my friend, she is Caucasian, and she told me after the incident, she was like, I didn't really know what to say. And I was like, thinking back, I was like, I guess like if I don't think about that in my life, I would have no, if I don't deal with that, I would have no idea what to do. So I kind of, I guess, had a call to action and said, if for my friends, like who want to be allies, just take 5 minutes out of your day. If you see something such as like an instance of racism that just happened, then kind of be prepared and know what to say. Just think about what you might say. So I think that that's why I was able to combat what was said and kind of stop and address it. Because if not, like I've had plenty of times when things like that have happened to me and I just kind of walk away, or, it's not worth it. But so yeah, that's kind of what happened. And yeah. But in regards to, has this been happening? Like, I think that the statistic is that during the past year, during COVID, that there have been a recorded 3,800 hate crimes against Asian Americans, but that's just recorded. Some instances, reported instances. And sometimes when you report it to the police, they're like, well, we don't count that as a hate crime. So like, that's not counted towards those statistics. And for my example, I had, I would say like 2 times, other times, that in the beginning of COVID, where I had racially, I guess I experienced racism, and I didn't report it, or I just, try to move on. So there's definitely more out there than and it is happening, and it's happening to your friends. It's happening to people, that So
Yeah,
Kudos.
what I think is really
Go ahead.
like interesting about that clip too is that like based off this what this man is saying, like I'm sure there are people who may not find too much of an issue with it. They're like, oh, they'll make those excuses like, oh, maybe he was trying to figure it out. But I feel like when, people of color, we know when we can find passive aggressive, like racial undertones, all of that mixed in. Like for him to taunt different, Asian backgrounds, that's directly that is racism he was having racial undertones for anybody who is unclear with what was happening
by the way. Yes, that is racism. No, like, and also at the end of that clip, I didn't even realize until I watched back, it said, or he said, bye, have a nice day. And I was like, what? Like he still didn't get it. And I'm like, honestly, sometimes it just might not stick, but you still have to do it for those people. And, there were people walking by who were watching, like looking at me. I'm sure I was like talking extra loud so that people could hear. And like, yeah, it's just so frustrating because he will never understand. And he was like, I think he was trying to relate to me because he was like, my family's from Mexico City. I'm like, how is that? Like, I understand, like, you are also a minority, right? But like, then let's all try to come together and have a common goal here of not spreading hatred,
Yeah, I think that was one of the most disappointing but awakening moments because it's like, it seems like you're in a city.
Yep.
So it's like more liberal, and two, a minority. So to me, it's like, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter who it is. You can endure racism, even if it's from another minority, which makes it even also more sad because it's like, they should be able to understand because, the racism that they endured, but maybe in his life, he never did. But it just seems like, obviously, I think some ignorant people don't understand because they're ignorant that even though you might mean something as a compliment doesn't make it a compliment, especially when it's regarding race. So go up to a Black woman in a store and feel her hair and say, oh, it feels so great. Or to compliment someone's Black complexion, be like, oh, you're very light for a Black person. There's certain things that no matter what race or ethnicity, there's some things that you just don't do. And that ignorance just should not block you.
Yeah, exactly. Like saying you're pretty for an Asian girl, like, or
Yes.
an Asian person.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And what I hate about a lot of that sort of like commentary is like, oh, so you're setting that there is some sort of invisible bar and it's always whiteness, right? Like, what do you mean for Asian, for a Black girl, for, someone who's Latinx? Like, that means you've set some sort of standard as a bar and that none of us, we barely reach it. Yeah. And for whose approval at that? Like that, it's just like the layers to that has always been so offensive. And I think hopefully people are starting to come to understand more that like, when someone tells you something, it's offensive, like don't push back and claim to be an ally and say, oh, well, I meant this well. Well, your intentions were not received well. Therefore, it is not okay to say, period.
So I've had that happen too, where I think since like the whole George Floyd incident, there's been so many resources out there and I've been trying to educate myself. And I've learned that there's this thing called like racial gaslighting. And one time I realized that happened to me because I was with a group of white friends and I was the only Asian person or minority in the group. And we were like, they were talking about how Nick Jonas is married to Priyanka Chopra. And one girl was like, oh, Priyanka, that's such a weird name. And my one white friend was like, he said, well, that's like low-key racist, like called it out. And then, so I was like, I felt empowered to say something. I was like, yeah, that's kind of racist. And then her boyfriend was also there and he literally like jumped on me and tore me down. He was like, she's from a small town. She just has never heard that name before. Like, that's not like racism, and I felt so ostracized. I left with that friend who had helped me. And then like, she didn't mean it in that way is racial gaslighting. If you don't like, just because you don't mean it in that way, yes, the intention might not have been there, but it was received. It's about how it's received. And then you just say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. And then you move on.
Amen.
That's just, oh, now I've learned. Like, thank you so much. That's all that needs to be said.
Yeah, that was a learning
Woo.
moment. Instead, they turned it around to be
Yes.
victims
Yep.
of something when they just oppressed someone else, and now they're the victim for being corrected.
Exactly.
That's one
Yeah.
thing. Ooh,
Racial
I
gaslighting.
sometimes have that issue about white people, bro. Is that I'm so sorry. And listen, I'm half white, so I'm gonna talk my shit. But that's one thing that really makes me upset about, especially white people. I know obviously anyone can be racist technically, but they really, I don't know what it is about the Karens in the world, but they really make it about themselves where they think they can say whatever they want. And then when it's offensive, they become victims.
The
It's
tears immediately. The tears.
like, give this bitch an Oscar, man. Like on cue. Oh my gosh. But back to seriousness. Sorry. But I want to know, Vivian, for you, because there has been this spark. Now let's be very clear that there's always been Black hate, there's always been Asian hate, there's always been hate amongst minorities. But where do you think the spike recently has come from?
So I don't want to get political, but I think that the previous administration having a rhetoric of calling COVID, it started in Wuhan, China, and calling it the China virus, Kung flu, that does not help. And I think it has empowered those who have been closet racists to come out and feel like they can say or do whatever they want because the leadership that was in power in the previous administration did that with no repercussions. Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of I cannot remember the senator's name. But the senator who she's Asian, and she was upset that Joe Biden didn't pick an Asian woman to serve on his cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
And she felt like so many other women were being chosen. I cannot remember her name. She served in the military. She her legs were amputated. She served this country in the military. And I'm just like, I understand why she was upset. And a lot of people like Meghan McCain on The View received a lot of heat for their commentary because they're like pretty much saying like, oh, so there's only been one Asian American on The View. So does that mean that other people who are actually qualified for jobs, they shouldn't get them just because an Asian woman needs to?
It's like she was pulling the affirmative action card.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which, if we're going to get real technical about it, affirmative action actually helps white women at the end of the day because they get to fall within the minority lines when they want to include women. So they still have all the, advantages of being white, but just the disadvantage of being a woman in a man's world. So technically, they're the ones who always benefit from affirmative action. Right, Megan, and all your nepotism? But the rest of that conversation is for another day.
Yeah, and like, to be clear, these opportunities that minorities are being afforded are because you have oppressed us for the past X number of years. So you're trying to make up for it. So that is all I have to say about that.
And mind you, I'm going to add one other point.
Her name is, it's Tammy Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth is her name.
I'm going to add one more point because you're exactly right. And the thing is, these opportunities, they're also making space for these opportunities. So some of the, the white people who think that, oh, I'm losing to this minority, that minority. No, boo, you're losing to your people, and you have to accept that you suck. You did not meet the bar. Unfortunately, we have been working our tails off, and now we're getting the opportunities we deserve. You just suck against your own people. I don't know what else to tell them.
Vivian, based on what is going on with Asian Americans, did it somewhat spark something in you or make you kind of like, I don't know, did it make you think of like what Black people are going through in a way of like did it help you understand certain things, or did it was it like a teachable moment at all, or did you already understand the Black Lives Matter movement? I just kind of want to know because it's very tied together.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one, I think that it made me realize that in the past, like, different minorities like Black people and Asian people have been pitted against each other. So, there has been historically, I guess we don't really haven't been like intertwined or like trying to lift each other up. We're just only, concerned about our own race. And so that's something that I've learned. And another thing was, I mean, I always knew it was happening. And like, I never really I never thought about what was happening to me and how, I guess I knew that it was happening to you guys. It happens to me. So I never was like, oh, let's like, I never put the pieces together to be like, this is what, if that makes sense. Like, I
Yeah.
just kind of was,
Yeah.
I guess, not concerned about myself. Of course, like I always, I'm not trying to like, I don't know how to say it, but like,
Yeah, but like a bubble
No, you make
sometimes,
sense.
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And until all of this started happening, like, and you're confined in your home during quarantine, and just like all you have to do is like look on your phone. Until then, I didn't guess put the two together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And with the movement that is sparked right now in the Asian American community, Stop Asian Hate, um, where should allies be looking, and what should allies be doing, more or less? Because I've seen so many videos all over social media of what's happening that's been recorded, and then sometimes I feel like, what should I do? And it's funny because like
Right.
BLM's going on, and I always felt like I knew what to do in that instance, but at the same
Mhm.
time flipping it around, I'm like, where should I be putting like my energy to make sure it's
Right.
doing something for the community? So
Yeah.
what should
And
allies
like,
be doing?
I think posting is great. Lizzo just came out with a TikTok. I don't know if you guys watch like are on TikTok, but she was like, posting a black square is no longer like, that is not the bar. The bare minimum. The bare minimum is like supporting black businesses. The bare minimum is, standing up for someone when you see racism happening. It like, to me, thank you so much for posting about the Atlanta shootings. Like, but it would be much appreciated if you were doing so, like the same things that what to do for your community, like supporting Asian businesses. Like, there's a thing I think I've seen on social media, like, love us like you love Chinese food, like going to Chinatown for Chinese food, like love us for the bubble tea that you drink, like, and appreciate us for our cultures and like things like
Yeah.
that. So just educating yourself, but also, if you have the means to donating to, there's like a Stop AAPI Hate fundraiser out there. And there were GoFundMe's for those victims in Atlanta and things like that. So
I have a question for both of you guys. I'm going to start with you first, Vivian, but I do want to get your opinion, Sade. We talked a little bit about white people and their involvement. I feel like for me, they might feel bashed or attacked or whatever. But I'm talking about the ignorant white people because we do have white listeners. But I do want to say, what do you guys think? What white people can do to help the cause that their ancestors, created?
yeah. So my answer would be educating yourself, because like knowing about the like Christopher Columbus, I don't know, like, like learning about the history of America, I think is important, because while, not all history is meant to be celebrated, as they say. So I think learning from that, and they say history repeats itself. So, we're not trying to have that happen. And I think calling it out when what's like, learn about it, share it, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to be a better person, and I learn something new every day. And I would say this is kind of irrelevant, I guess, not relevant, but you may not consider yourself to be a racist, or I may not consider you to be a racist, but sometimes like what's ingrained in you, you can do a racist thing. You can say something that is racist, and that does not mean you are a racist. I think it's important, because I think that word is so polarized or like electrified that like people are like, oh my god, like, no, I'm not a racist. Like, it's important to know that you aren't a racist, but you can do a racist thing, and then just like own it, learn from it, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Vivian, because I think education is so important. And I just find, over the years, all of us, if you've been in the US education system when you were younger, all of us got this like glazed over sort of history. that really sort of just celebrated what forefathers did, and more or less what like white people did here historically, while discounting the fact that the true atrocities of like slavery and the true atrocities of bringing immigrants over, and like you know literally pitting how they started to pit Asian people against Black people. Like it comes all the way from history. And I think white people need to understand how that really trickles down, especially if they don't want to like repeat it again. Because I see so many comments of people saying, well, why do I have to suffer for what happened 400 years ago or 300 years ago? And it's like, you don't have to suffer, but you need to recognize the opportunity that you've been afforded because of the systems that were actually put in place. And I think we say this all the time, but it's really important for them to understand how, things have been passed down, how generational wealth has been passed down, like all of that has really propped them up in this system, and then understand how that they can like fix that to do better for everyone else. And then, just really taking action after that, because they still right now have a lot of opportunity. They, I think, have the ability to open doors for others, or just like be more understanding of like the obstacles that we have. No more racial gaslighting when actual issues happen in the office. Stop the passive aggressiveness with people of color in workplaces or online, all of that. That's what I think needs to happen.
Ooh, y'all are giving me life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chime in. I think the biggest thing for the white community is just, especially if they have Black friends or friends of people of color, is to listen. Like, if it's so crazy to me that some people can just like think that their friends of color want to be victims of racism or want to be victims of violence. So listen to those stories, like really listen to what they're going through, and remember that in your brain when you see something, whether it's on TV or when you're walking, going to work, or when you're walking to get your coffee in the morning, you'll see it. And I'm sure Vivian, your friend who was with you that day, I'm sure she saw it. I'm sure her life changed in how her outlook on racism, and I'm sure her love for you and her admiration for you changed as well in a positive way. Has she said anything about, has she said anything since that situation about what she's learned?
I think she was like, when I mentioned to her, please take 5 minutes out of your day to think about what you might say if you, she was like, yeah, I definitely think that you have to be prepared for that. And I will definitely do that. And I don't know, I didn't follow up with her, but I'm sure it will happen again. So we'll see what, but I think that seeing that was important, because then it makes you realize, wow, it does happen. It's not just on the news, it does happen to people, and just because I don't see it doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy too, because some white people don't, that they're not racist, and they don't even think, not that racism doesn't exist, but they think that, it's like, it's 2021, things aren't like that anymore. Even if something crazy happened last year, George Floyd, it's just like, just because that happened, some of them think, the whole George Floyd thing, a lot of people have changed. And it's like, no, that's not the reality.
Oh, and I think one more thing to add on this topic, you said why people should listen. I also think to take that a step further is like, don't forget to stand like behind the people that you want to support, instead of trying to always like lead the charge and be this kind of like white savior that we always have happening, because they tend to like move to the forefront, and then they want to decide what is woke or what is cancelable, and what they're like, well, I'm doing this for you. We did not ask for that. Just listen to the people you're with, and learn what action to do from there. Because I think too often I've seen allies overstep across the board, and I think it's really important to listen to the people who you claim to support.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
So moving forward, Sadé, is there anything that you would like to add or ask?
I feel like we basically touched on everything I wanted to ask.
Okay. Vivian, is there any last words that you want to say before we go?
I do have last words that I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Period.
Period. This is kind of irrelevant, but I think that everyone should be vaccinated, even though there's a recall on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, because the percentage of people, there's been like 7 out of X number
Million.
of bad. Yeah. So the percentage of that is lesser than, so a side effect of women taking birth control is also blood clots, and that percentage is way higher. And so like, then what are we doing here? You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I think it's important, and that's all I have to say.
Amen. I'm so happy you said that. And
Yeah.
fun fact, it's like 98% that if you get the vaccination, you won't experience side effects. And what they found so far hasn't even been like 99.8 or something like that. But pretty
Right.
much I got the Johnson & Johnson before.
You did?
I got it last Thursday.
How are you feeling?
Girl, I was in the bed. I was in the bed. Oh my God. I had a fever and everything. It was horrible.
Wow. No, so I got
For a
Pfizer
day.
on Tuesday, and
Nice.
then Wednesday there's that announcement of Pfizer about to get. I'm like, oh no.
Wait, yes, I got Pfizer too. We've only got Moderna, then we could have some diversity in vaccinations.
I know. I was just like, man, I just got it, and they're like, you might have to get a third dose.
The booster.
Not
Yeah,
a third dose.
love it.
But you know what? As long as it doesn't, take me, I don't have to go through too many like terrible feelings when I get the third one. That I don't mind getting a booster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for listening to Over the BS. My name is Blair. You guys can follow me on social media at I am Blair T. Make sure you guys follow the show at Over the BS Show on Instagram and Twitter. And you can also check us out on YouTube.
Yeah. I'm Sadé Spence. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Sadé A Spence. And I am on TikTok at Sadé TV.
Vivian, what do you have to promote? Do you have social media? Do you have a project, girl? This is your time.
Yeah, well, I do have an Instagram _Vivian HU, and then I have an Instagram bakery called Chicago_desserts. So
Is that why the marshmallows?
yeah.
Okay.
That's why I was
Okay.
late.
Get that money.
Oh my God, that's
Yes.
amazing. A big
Support Asian businesses, y'all. Make sure
Yeah,
y'all
support.
plug it right there. Exactly. I love it. Wait, what do you specialize in? Like what desserts do you?
Macaroons, and then I have these like birthday cake cookies. I also make a rainbow explosion cake, so you cut into it, and then like the sprinkles come trickling out.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh my
So
gosh.
cute and
Yes.
delectable and yummy.
Yeah, so if you guys want some treats, make sure you guys go visit Vivian's page, especially if you're in Chicago, right?
Right.
Hey, well, you guys,
Awesome.
thank you so much for watching and listening to Over the BS Show. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.